Hello everybody! The topic of this video today is going to be my personal experience with mental illness, and in particular, the illness I will be talking about is one I don't see many artists on YouTube discussing, as they do not suffer from it themselves. It will be my experience with psychosis, specifically schizophrenic symptoms, as I suffer from depressive type schizoaffective disorder. Some of you may have noticed how I speak in my videos and how my voice may not always be very expressive. I may speak in a way that you believe is strange or just monotonous, and that is due to both the schizophrenic symptoms and my other diagnosis of Asperger's, which is a form of autism, and both happen to contribute to the way I speak. They actually happen to have very similar symptoms, but I have been professionally diagnosed with both things by multiple psychologists. Now, I've had signs of mental illness appearing in myself as young as I can remember, so think age 5, age 6, age 7, but the psychosis symptoms started appearing age 12, specifically the negative symptoms of schizophrenia being my disinterest in relationships and the avoidant nature I have. I also may not recall all symptoms that are very prominent because living with it every day normalizes it to me, and I happen to forget that this is not something that everyone experiences on a daily basis. Another major symptom was the fact that I had no interest in anything, very similar to the non-sad type symptoms of depression. You know, the symptoms that basically make you apathetic to everything and unenergetic, inactive, things like that. One of the biggest negative symptoms that have caused trouble with myself and other people would be the inappropriate reactions and things I have said to people, such as someone expressing their sadness at someone else experiencing misfortune or maybe someone dying. My response immediately, without thinking, would be to smile or even to laugh. And it is not because I am happy about the situation. I am not. But that is just how my body responds, and I don't really take it into account what my body is doing when I am thinking about it. Another prominent symptom would be the word salad and disorganized language that I happen to execute when I speak or even when I type, because my thoughts happen to be a little messy, and the way I speak may not come off as what most people understand fluently. Like, I will often speak gibberish, or I will use words and phrases that do not belong in the sentence that I happen to be speaking. When I was first hospitalized due to my psychotic break, I remember the psychiatrist who evaluated me described my voice and tone of speech as robotic, specifically using that word. He also described me as experiencing and showing that I was experiencing having the flat effect to a very severe extent, meaning I would experience no and show that I was experiencing little to no emotion whatsoever. I was not feeling a lot unless I was having a break and things were extreme. Other things would be that lately, in the last couple of years, I have periods where I will become catatonic, meaning that I cannot move for periods of time. It's usually not very long, it only lasts a couple of hours, maybe an hour if I'm lucky or less. But I just go into a state where I cannot quite think or move. I stay very still for just that time. And like previously mentioned, my thoughts and behaviors can be very disorganized and messy, and I have often done nonsensical things, said nonsensical things, and there really is no explanation for it other than the whole schizophrenia diagnosis thing. I can't really say there's meaning behind it. Most of the time, I've noticed other people discussing, my thoughts are racing. There's just so much going on in my head. I know what goes on in my head, and there's not a lot. It's pretty clear I don't think a lot, but what I do think is what I say, because I say it and then I think about it. And I've had people comment on it being a little weird. That just happens. At least in my case, that would just be me. And people get used to it. So there's that. Now I will be talking about the positive symptoms of the schizophrenia, the ones that most everyone is curious about, that everyone really feels a need to ask about if they're gonna ask about anything about your mental illness. And the positive symptoms are the psychotic symptoms, the most notable ones that everyone knows about, such as hallucinations and delusions. When it comes to hallucinations, the most common ones I have experienced have been audible and tactile, meaning I'll hear noises and voices, and I will feel things that are not there. And it gets pretty scary, especially when you constantly think there are bugs crawling all over you, or when you think someone's outside of your window sobbing. And usually, I don't find any joy in any of these, but I am not always completely put off by them, simply because I will either be upset, or I will always be upset actually. I will either be upset by being scared, or I will be upset by being annoyed. There is really no positive outcome of the hallucinations because I have never experienced a good one, or one that is not bad or unpleasant or inconvenient. There's just no positive to them, as I can see, despite it being a positive symptom. I honestly don't know where they get the name for these symptom categories. My biggest problem happens to be delusions, in which I have very frequent paranoid delusions, delusions of persecution, and this has only grown worse over time, but with reason. Otherwise, sometimes it is irrational. Usually it is blown out of proportion by my brain. But a lot of times there's reason behind it, which may just be the delusion speaking, but I believe that there is cause, there is good reason for these to be starting, and for them to be growing to the extent that they do grow. It's just that the extent is extreme. It should not be happening to that extreme, but I can see why it gets there. Other people may not be able to, and again, that would just be the whole schizophrenia thing. That's mostly all I have to say about what I experience, because like I mentioned, There is a good amount of stuff that happens to me that does not happen to other people because they may not be psychotic, they may not be schizophrenic, and I have just grown used to it because I deal with it every day. It's not something that comes and goes. But it has gotten better because I have been medicated for about 5 years. I've been on antipsychotics, different ones here and there. I've been on medications for several things, but the most notable medication has been the antipsychotics because they have been the most needed, I've noticed. I become sort of hysterical and manic when I am not on them. I have my own psychotic breaks when not on them, of course, which is to be expected. But it is what happens. And because of that, I stay on them. I try to remember to take them as best I can. My advice for other people suffering from similar symptoms would be to seek someone out, namely a psychiatrist who can treat you using medication, because I don't believe there are other things that can treat a psychotic illness quite as efficiently as medication does. You could always go through therapy to help your negative symptoms, which I am actually trying to obtain right now, a therapist. I need one for other illnesses I experience, namely borderline personality disorder, which is kind of a really hard thing to deal with, especially alongside the whole schizophrenia. But that's for another day. In this video, the illness I know most about with my own experiences happens to be the schizophrenia. I never thought I had it until I got diagnosed with it, in which I did some more in-depth research on it, and I was like, this makes a little more sense than I'm comfortable with. And that's just how that went. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'm sorry that the video made kind of little to no sense. That is just how my brain works, functions, thinks, whatever you may want to describe it as. But it especially gets messy when I think about my own illnesses. But thank you again. I will see you guys another day. Goodbye.